there are a few like common themes among the research I've done, because it's everything from like don't worry about it to
don't ever do this.
Don't build a house in this in this state.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Fine Homebuilding Editorial Director Andrew Zellner.
Good morning, Patrick.
Production Manager for TDS Custom Construction, Ian Schwant.
Morning, Patrick.
Our producer, Jeff Rose.
Hello.
Please email your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Well, fellas, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
So ahead of the show, Ian and I were talking about the why temperature swings that are so common in the Midwest this time of year. Can you talk a little bit about that, Ian?
Yeah, I think Andrew and I probably both went to bed one night to freezing temperatures and woke up to mid-80s like it was summertime the next morning. So bit of a
here's where we have
my house.
Yeah, a
right
difference
now.
of approach with regard to space conditioning. Andrew, you have the let it flow kind of mindset, and Ian, you're keeping it tight and ventilating right. But one of the things that people have observed when you do heating and cooling of mini splits is when you have these wide temperature swings, it can be tough to make the house comfortable, right?
Yeah, it's very tough. One day where it got, up into the low 80s, but it was kind of a slow roll to that 80-degree temp. We just had the windows open and the big ceiling fan going, and that did the trick. But yesterday when we were gone all day and then got home at 9 at night, it was 77 degrees inside the house. And, what do? Do you turn the mini split on and by midnight it'll be nice up there? So we just went downstairs into the basement bedrooms and watched TV down there until we went to bed, where it was naturally 10 degrees cooler.
Can I ask you a dumb question about your mini splits? Like, will they switch between heating and cooling automatically, or do you physically have to set them for the respective operation?
To my knowledge, you have to set them. There might be a setting on there where it will go back and forth. But I know that when you have a multi-head system like I have, all the heads have to be set for the same base, whether it be heating or cooling. You can do the fan function with one on heat or cool, but you can't have one running heat and one running cool.
That's a pretty specialized system, and I hear they're kind of common in like commercial situations, but for residential, they're very expensive.
Yeah.
And you don't leave your windows open when you're gone during the day, Ian?
No, we don't. Maybe that's something that we should actually start doing to try and keep the house a little bit cooler.
It's also balancing that with, security or rain or,
Rain. So what do you do, Andrew? I'm guessing your house probably responds more quickly to, these temperature swings.
They do. We've got plaster walls pretty much throughout the entire house, and that seems to, if we leave our windows closed and it's cold in the morning, we'll walk outside at lunchtime and it'll be like 15 degrees warmer outside than it is inside.
You have a buffering, right?
Yeah. And, we've got, 3 different kinds of siding layers. And but it's sort of like once the windows are open and the house warms up, it does not cool down until we, put some AC units in. We have a 2-story house, and so we will leave our upper windows open or cracked, kind of all summer long. And that seems to at least help regulate things up here in my office.
We were also observing ahead of the show that Andrew lives in one of the continental U.S.'s coldest places, right? There's a little of Zone 7 at the very northern center of the country and in Jackson, Wyoming, and parts of Idaho, but it is a brutal climate, right?
It is. It's, you get those like ultra extreme cold, and then we'll also hit 100, and it'll be super muggy and humid, and it's a great place to live, Patrick. Can't recommend it enough.
You keep telling me that. Jeff, have you been comfortable in your place?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's nice to have the windows open yesterday afternoon, but probably by 6 o'clock it's time to close up because the temperature starts to drop.
We've had conversations about night flushing, and those of you who are unfamiliar, it's open your windows in the evening in order to bring in cooler air, and it doesn't work in a lot of the year in a lot of the country because the air gets real humid at dusk or when the sun sets, and we've been able to quite successfully cool our house off in the evening because the humidity's been unusually low, right, Jeff?
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing like 30%, which seems very odd for us. And it actually works when the humidity is that low. And it's been a great little building and science education for Liam to watch the, house humidity go down as the outside humidity goes up as the, evening rolls on, and the temperature in the house goes down, and so does the outdoor air temperature. Pretty cool. You guys have projects going on?
I'm continuing to chip away at the screen porch. My father-in-law and I got the frame and the screenies molding put up over the weekend. So now we're just waiting for a day without 30-mile-an-hour winds to put the screen on. So
was that an enjoyable experience, or was that fussy, annoying work?
It actually ended up being a pretty enjoyable experience. We kind of came up with a way, because of the size of the space, to just have my father-in-law set up on the saw, do all the same cuts, and then we filled in the in-between mitered pieces that were full length instead of a splice, because I got it in 8-foot lengths, and I think I have a 12-foot opening and a 13-foot opening. So we did have a splice, and that actually made it a little bit easier to install.
Because you're not using these giant panels, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk more about that because someone, I believe, wrote in and expressed an interest in talking to you about that.
Yeah, and I did get it confirmed for the end of this week. I will have my final blower door test. My guy's finally going to be in my area again, so next...
It's like the Snap-on tool guy. You got to wait till he's
That's right. Yeah,
around.
exactly.
And then...
Yeah, he's been too busy repoing other people's tools. Get back to,
you want to be on the end of that run.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So next podcast, I should be able to report what our final blower door number was.
I feel like we should do a pool and try and guess what your number is going to be.
Getting over under going, yeah.
Yeah.
What are you hoping?
I'm hoping for 0.5.
0.5.
Because we were 0.59 when he did it pre-drywall.
I'm worried you're going to suffocate in that house.
That's why we had the ventilator going.
Oh, right, okay. Andrew, do you have projects going?
Yeah, actually, we have a friend who is selling her house, and she's moving into a new house. But her moving into that new house is contingent on the sellers of that new house also finding a place to live. And so she's going to move in with us. Her close date is July 1st. So my office is our guest bedroom, and so I've been gradually making the basement that I've been working on into a space where it'll at least look like I live in civilization. So
that'll become your office or the guest bedroom?
The basement will become my office.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll look different, but basically I've just got a weekend of lugging books downstairs.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Jeff, you got stuff going on?
Well, I think I'd trade with Andrew. I've got a weekend of lugging dirt, so.
What are you doing?
Just filling in some sinkholes in the yard, some areas that have subsided, so I've got 20 yards of topsoil to move.
Oh my God, that's a lot. Did you rent a machine?
I've thought about it, but I haven't I mean, half of it I got dumped right near where it needed to go, so that half is done. The other half kind of needs to be spread around a little bit.
So the enjoyment of the machine is offset by the destruction it does to the rest of your landscape when you're moving it around.
Yeah.
So,
Patrick, have you seen those little walk behind skid loaders?
a dingo, for example,
Have you ever used one of those?
I haven't. I'm trying to figure out a way I need to use one of those.
I feel like we need to get one for the Fine Homebuilding staff.
I think you're
Yeah,
right.
you would have been proud of my wife. Over the weekend, we saw a commercial for one of those, and she's like, "Man, I should really have one of those."
She really
She
should.
totally should. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We looked them up. They're like $32,000.
It's a lot of coin for a little machine.
Yeah.
They're quite rentable, though. I see them in all the rental yards because it's small. It's useful. I'm sure. Some of them will fit through a garden gate, right?
Yep.
Pretty cool. So I want to just remind folks to take a look at your mechanicals on a regular basis. I was in the basement on Sunday emptying the dehumidifier because it's that time of year again. And I happened to look at the top of the water tank, hot water heater, and there's like this efflorescence, mineral residue. So clearly it's leaking. I don't know from where. I think it's from the cold water inlet around the threads. I don't know how that starts happening years after it's installed, but I checked the warranty of it. And guess how long it's been expired?
2 weeks.
It's like 6 weeks. I want to know the engineers who figure this out to the week. That's incredible to me. So I'm in the process of picking a water heater, and it's tempting to me to buy a heat pump water heater because I already have a dehumidifier down there. But they are so crazy expensive, and I don't know what to do with the condensate. I'm going to have to buy a pump because all of my drain lines are higher than the water tank. Any suggestions?
I'm also in the same boat, Patrick. My water heater was installed in November of 2001, and it's working fine, but it's that preventative maintenance kind of thing, and I've been looking at the hybrid water heaters too, and actually, I thought I'm thinking I'll actually move where my water heater is to a spot closer to a drain, because I also just redid all my interior plumbing with PEX, so extending those lines a couple feet across the basement isn't a big deal. But
and then you just run that into the floor drain.
Yeah.
If you got a floor drain, that's a perfect solution.
I've
also looked at these
floor drains.
I'm sorry?
You don't have a floor drain in your
No. Not the right topography. It wouldn't go anywhere.
It'd let water in.
Right. It would let water in. I've also looked at these Marathon electric tank water heaters. It's a resistant element, but the tank is plastic. Mm-hmm. They cost like $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. And, a regular one is $500. So, I mean,
the hybrid will also dehumidify your basement.
that's a big plus, right? Because conceivably I could get rid of the dehumidifier, the dehumidifying appliance we have.
Do you know what this year's rebates are from the electric company? Because they were pretty substantial last year.
To switch to a heat pump water heater, Jeff?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about that. That is a great suggestion.
I mean, it was like half the price.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, if you listeners out there have thoughts on heating water for domestic use, please share them, because I think it's something that we're all dealing with, ongoing. So we got some great feedback, as always. This comes from our friend Jim Collins, who's a landscape architect in Canada. He says, another spring, another series of deck repairs. Please remind me, if I ever meet the people who I bought this house from, to punch them in the face. What a disgusting way to build a deck. I'm the vicious victim of deck boards attached close together with no air circulation. There's no clear stone underneath the deck boards. And then please remember, the best place to dispose of all your off-cut wood scraps is under the deck. So this is based on a conversation we had a couple episodes ago. It was someone was debating whether to extend their deck or build a patio. And I think we all agreed a patio when you're really close to grade is a better solution.
I'm surprised you only had wood scraps under there and not like beer bottles
cans,
and stuff like that.
Did you guys hear on the news that somebody opened up a wall and they found a bag of McDonald's French fries from the 50s in there?
Yep.
Yeah, and did you see the picture?
No.
I mean, like it sounds like they like looked exactly like the French fries did in the 50s and what they look like today. And
They weren't moldy?
I think that's what was newsworthy about them.
They were preserved.
Yeah.
On most of the job sites I've been on, someone would have paid money for someone to eat one.
I might have done
for
it.
Sure.
If for the right amount. I'm thinking of just throwing a sack in the car as a glove compartment just to have in case I break down. We heard from Frank on YouTube about decks too. Just took apart 2 small decks, and underneath was a haven for chipmunks and snakes. The decks were at ground level, so there you go. I don't know how it could be a haven for both chipmunks and snakes, but you know. This comes from Ben. Longtime listener, first-time emailer, thought you might enjoy this newsletter. I nearly bought a house in the Hollywood Hills. The seller was repped by the firm that is the focus of the Netflix series Selling Sunset. This company, Alpha Structural, did my structural assessment and accurately concluded that the house, while gorgeous and multi-million-dollar views, was sliding down the hill. Literally, the closet was staged with designer handbags and other luxury goods, but when pushed aside, there was clear spalling from non-code compliant renovations, and a marble dropped on the floor rolled down off the edge of the deck. Needless to say, I exercised my contingency and passed. So I don't know if you guys saw the pictures from this. They came to the podcast mailbox. I think it was yesterday. I just added this to the show. But this house just slid down a hillside in California. And Ben could have bought it. And I was thinking about, does insurance pay for a house that, you know, just moves down a hill in a mass wasting event? I'm guessing it doesn't.
I'm betting they try not to as much as possible.
I think that's a safe bet. So part of the fascination with this email from Ben was that I had to look up what selling sunset is, and here's the description that the Google listing had. Selling real estate in the Los Angeles market can be glorious given the area's sunny location and an abundance of the rich and famous living there. It can also be cutthroat as agents fight over clients and properties. Selling Sunset showcases the drama at Oppenheim Group, where elite real estate brokers sell the luxurious life to their affluent buyers. And the drama gets bumped up even more when a new agent joins the team and the veterans want to prove herself before accepting her as a member of the group. Have you guys seen this show?
No, but I have an insatiable appetite for horror stories related to like HGTV shows and real estate shows. I can't get enough of them.
Well, so of course this led me down a path of other weird shows, and it said, folks who searched for this also searched for Selling Tampa, Tiny House Hunters, Buying Naked, which of course I had to figure out what that is. Buying Naked follows Jackie and her team in Pasco County, Florida, as they help uncover dream homes for their in-the-buff customers. Typically, that entails going beyond the usual factors like location, layout, and budget, and keeps in mind routine tasks such as cooking, cleaning, and even strolling in a new home, all of which can present safety risks for the unclothed. What about the rest of us? I don't want to see that. Pasco County, Florida has the highest collection of clothing optional communities in the country. Might be interested to know.
Is it a big retirement community?
I don't know. I didn't want to dig any further,
Okay.
Andrew.
What's the average age of that community?
I love that there's TV for this stuff, right? No matter what weird thing there is you're into. Well, I guess we should get to some questions. This is going down a place I don't want to go. This comes from Andrew K. in Still Muddy, Michigan. He says, all right, Patrick, because I keep emailing you and not the general podcast email, I figured I would sign up for the All Access Pass as a thank you for a great podcast and answers to my questions. This is solely because of the podcast and all the amazing people, readers, and pros the team brings onto the show. Thank you. However, I do also need help. I heard on podcast 2 weeks ago that Ian was screening his deck, and ironically, that's the same decision that my wife and I decided to do this year as well, for the same reasons: bugs. I need the podcast team to do what they do best. Please poke holes and make me aware of the downfalls of my design. We have an existing 12 by 12-ish weird pentagon deck that is not attached to the house and is 3.5 feet off the ground. We want to expand the deck to 16 by 24 square composite decking with a screened-in pergola that is not attached to the house. But the overhangs of the house, it will overhang the house. Oh my goodness! It will overhang the house overhangs by about 12 inches. It will have a watertight roof made of Ondura premium panels, if I can find them, and I will reroute the exhaust and intake airflow for the furnace through the pergola roof or build around it. He says, my worries are, the shingles will be covered by 12-inch of the pergola overhang. Will they mold and rot due to the lack of sunlight and drying potential? I will have to mount the posts closest to the house to the deck and framing and not with footings. Do you think this will be a problem with supporting the structure? All the other posts will have footings 48 inches deep. Is this even a good idea? I have attached a photo of the existing deck, mock-ups from the big box store deck designer, and then a YouTube video of another person who did almost exactly what I'm looking to do with a similar Cape Cod style home. Thank you for your candid feedback. So I asked Andrew if he was trying to salvage this existing deck or if he was going to start from scratch. And he says, I'll try to salvage the structure of the existing deck to the best of my ability, as it's in good shape, just a weird shape. However, now that I think further, I might only really be able to use 1 or 2 posts from that, as everything will be expanded. And the deck is wood now, so the rails and decking will also be ripped up. And I also asked him what's up with the Ondura roofing. Are you guys familiar with this product?
I'm not.
So Andrew, it's like corrugations of asphalt roofing, except they're big corrugations. They're like probably 3 inches tall and wide, right, Ian? Wouldn't you think?
In my area of the Midwest, we call them tar paper shacks, made out of these things. It's basically what it is.
It's not a common roofing material, which is why I asked him about it. He said it seemed the easiest to get up there with minimal effort and load. I was planning on just running furring strips across the rafters to attach the panels to, similar to steel roofing. I suppose that with paneling, I wouldn't need as many rafters. However, I think he means with sheathing. I wouldn't need as many rafters. I could see how not having sheathing up there would result in less stability of the structure. Thanks again. Looking forward to your thoughts. Okay, so what do we think about this plan? Anyone?
Start from scratch.
Yeah.
I can't agree more, right? There's nothing to save here.
No.
Yeah.
No, start from scratch and really think about how the roof system of this pergola is going to intersect with the roof system of the house.
I think the key here is we have to have deck posts that continue up to form the posts for this pergola roof for any strength,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Because when you have all this weight on top of spindly posts, it's very hard to make that strong enough to resist overturning.
Yeah, I actually think this is something that like a professional designer should probably design for him, and how it intersects with the house, and instead of one of the big box deck designers. I think this gets a step outside of that standard operating design procedure a place like that can offer.
What about how long is this going to take? Andrew wants to do this right away, I'm sure. It's going to take months to get a designer to do this minimum, right?
That's true. It could, yeah. Just the amount of work to do this and have it intersect with the house in a way that's not going to have collateral damage when it starts to rain in still muddy Michigan.
I think it needs a valley with an intersecting gable, right?
Yeah.
Would be best. I've seen people try and add shed roofs above their existing roofs, and they use kind of posts to elevate it. And, I don't know about that. I don't know. What do you think, Andrew?
I would also think that this is going to be way more work than Andrew thinks it's going to be either way.
Well, if you get a deck designer involved, you've got 2 or 3 months to carefully deconstruct your existing deck and salvage every piece of lumber you can.
That's a good thought.
That's something I've definitely come around to, and with wood prices what they are is, my time is worthless. So as much time as I want to spend salvaging stuff, it like actually feels worth it now.
Oh, it's super satisfying. And what looks like garbage at first turns into something pretty quickly once you get the nails out of it and can put it in a stack.
Yeah. The only downside is that it's not fast. It's
definitely not. On roofing, I don't know about this stuff. Yeah, I mean, I sold a little bit of it when I worked at the lumber yard, but it was always for like equipment sheds and stuff like that. It was never for a structure, and obviously the stakes are lower when it's a pergola versus on your house, but I don't know.
Roof of like a calf barn or chicken coop or something like that. It's where I've normally seen it used, or a patch job.
I can expect we won't get Ondura sponsoring the podcast in any time soon, but
like any material, though, it has its place where it's has an appropriate use. It just, I'm not sure it would be appropriate on a screened-in gazebo that intersects an existing house roof.
Andrew, you asked for poking. I'm going to keep poking. If you do decide to do the monoslope roof that is above your existing roof, at least leave 18 inches or more, so when it comes time to roof your house, that someone can get in there without having to rip the pergola roof off, right? And I think that could look cool visually, don't you?
Yeah, I think it could. You're talking about just a shed roof that comes in somewhere above that existing eave line, right?
Yeah, and if the posts were, affixed to the exterior walls of the house and continued upward, if the house was a gutter, that's going to be a problem. But I think you could make that work visually, and I think you could still re-roof the existing house when it came time.
Yeah, you'd have to get creative with how you fill in the sides of that shed roof, like you said, where you have your existing gutters, and you may have to change how that gutter works on that eave.
And if you have an overhang on the house, you're going to have to, make a penetration in the existing roof, which is always fraught with peril, especially at the eave where you have the most water coming down the roof.
Right. I would also suggest looking into a helical pier installer instead of trying to do these posts yourself. It sounds like he's going to have a few of them to do, and the more of them you have, the more economical it is to have somebody come out and put those in the ground for you.
Ian, what was, have you had to do that recently? What did it cost per pier?
Typically here, it's, if you just have, I think 4 and under, they're about $400 a piece. And then after that, they start to drop, and I think they bottom out around $300 each, unless you have to go really deep with them.
I think the labor costs now would make that totally worthwhile.
Yeah. And people don't realize the size of a pier that you actually need per code for something like this is pretty large. I know when we were looking at the deck we built on our house, I think we would have needed maybe 24 or 26 inch diameter sonotubes for it, which that's a big hole. It's a lot of concrete, and we just had the helical pier guy come, and a couple hours later it was done.
The site disturbance of digging a 2-foot diameter post footing is huge, right?
Yep.
The volume that comes out of there is way more, it seems like, than came out, or the pile that you're, have. Yeah, I don't know. How does that happen? But I guess air gets into it. Yeah. And I'm guessing he's going to need a dozen or more, right?
Yeah, he's going to need a lot by the time you design this and you're supporting the deck. And the other thing to keep in mind is you end up with a a bigger load that you're carrying when you're carrying roof with snow load plus your deck load.
Absolutely. Andrew could have a 50-pound snow load where he is, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, Andrew, I hope that was helpful. Thanks very much for signing up for All Access. And please keep us posted on what you decide to do, because I think this is a pretty darn interesting project. Why someone built the deck the way they did on the back of your house, Andrew, I can't explain, but shame on them.
I think they were in vogue for a while, those like weird angled decks, before people were really enjoying spending time outside. Maybe it was just the spot for a grill.
I wonder if there's setback considerations that made them shape this thing so bizarrely. Half of the space is dedicated to this like stupidly wide staircase.
The stair is great.
Yeah.
There's so much good material, to Andrew's point, that can be salvaged out of that wedge-shaped stair alone.
It looks like it's 8 or 10 feet wide.
Yeah.
Anyway, this comes from Marc. Good morning. I have a living space that was built as an addition to extend my master bedroom over what was a screened-in porch. The screened-in porch was a typical deck sitting about 1 foot above grade. The builder put subfloor down over the decking, then put hardwood flooring down on that. There's no insulation or vapor retarder. Outside, they ran the aluminum siding down below grade to cover the opening around the deck. The walls are built as a typical wall with studs and insulation, and there is a low-pitched roof overhead. Obviously, this room is very cold in the winter and hot in the summer. I live in New Jersey. I'm right on the line between climate zone 4 and 5. I'm getting everything right now and trying to figure out where I should put a vapor barrier and how I should approach insulating the floor. With the floor joist only about a foot above grade, I don't have much room to work from beneath. I've come up with a few courses of action. I can either build up blocking around the deck and enclose everything and treat it like a crawl space and encapsulate it, or I can treat it like a mobile home and insulate the floor as if it were sitting above the dirt, something like a raised floor or a raised pier and beam foundation. If I go that route, I'm curious how someone would air seal from below and insulate. Do people air seal beneath the floor joist of a mobile home or raised pier and beam foundation? Respectfully, Marc. So manufactured homes are notoriously leaky in their bottoms, and oftentimes, especially in the old days, it was just like bats of fiberglass put up there and held up with, whatever, chicken wire is something I've seen, which just doesn't do anything. So I went and looked to them for a method of doing this effectively. What should we do here, fellas?
I like the idea of just insulating the floor, maybe with putting foam board between the joists and trying to seal that to the side of the joist and adding fluffy stuff of your choice on top of that as a way to insulate that floor system.
So, but logistically, would you remove the hardwood floor and subfloor and decking and do it from the top?
Given the little bit of space that he has, I think you'd have to go that route, but it kind of sounds like he was willing to commit to that anyway.
I don't see a choice. I mean, unless you put a toddler under there, 12 inches is not enough for a person to fit and work.
You could excavate out from underneath it so you could get some working space in there if you wanted to. That would be your other option. I don't know how viable that is for his location, his spot.
If you do that, it needs like a wood stove and an access hole that you move away.
I think
people, only people of a certain age are going to get my reference here, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies of all time, The Great Escape. Oh, so good. Have you seen this movie, Andrew?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Anyway, I think it's got to be from the top, and I think this might be one of the few instances I'm going to say spray foam might be the logical thing to do here. Except, you're living in the house, that comes with some risks. I don't know. Cutting and cobbling rigid foam seems like another good option, especially if, the small area.
I think there's a lot of these existing conditions in homes that people don't know what to do with, and oftentimes just leave for lack of any good option.
You mean they move, or they just like
No, leave
live
it
with
as it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
live with it.
Add some extra heat in the bedroom or cooling, right?
Yeah.
You could solve this with a mini split.
Yeah. Good.
I don't know, Mark. This is a hard thing. Like, you're going to spend thousands to replace all the hardwood flooring, and you're going to have many hours of work. I'm guessing dozens, if not more. And you could hire a HVAC company to come and hang a mini split and have it done in a day. I don't know.
Or you could turn it back into a screen porch. Those seem to become, very in vogue right now, Ian.
Right? You could sell it to Andrew. Do you think we adequately answered this question, Jeff?
I think so. I mean, there's no good answer, but yeah, I think the mini split's probably the most viable.
There's an interesting cost-benefit analysis to be done by somebody, Patrick, between the fix that we just laid out, which is lots of work and lots of money, versus just throw a mini split in and take the electric bill penalty for conditioning the area to mitigate the too hot and too cold parts of the year.
Yeah, I guess I don't know that it would be nice to know how big this space is. If it's like 20 square feet versus, a couple hundred, I think that makes a huge difference.
Right.
Could be solved with wall-to-wall carpeting too, Mark. This comes from Adam. Hi, FHB. I got an old house built in 1880 in northern Utah. The foundation is a rubble one with walls 12 inches thick with multi-wide brick. My question is about a lack of vapor barrier in the crawl space. The finished floor is tongue and groove pine that's nailed directly to the wood joist. The space between the bottom of the joist and the dirt floor is like 6 inches. I really don't have any access below the floor. Are you guys seeing a theme here today? There's not enough room for even a small child to get in there. I'm wondering if I need a vapor barrier. Obviously, this has been working for the past 100 years or so. What are the implications for not having a vapor barrier down there? Any suggestions? Or is this even a problem? Thanks, Adam. Does anyone know the climate of northern Utah? It's
No.
desert, right?
Is that like high desert kind of area?
I emailed Adam back and asked him how much rain he got a year, but I didn't hear from him because I figured I would research this before the show, but then I didn't. I was researching bad cable television shows. So, I mean, if this has been working for 100 years and it's not easy to fix, I'm inclined to say enjoy it, Mark, and, get on with your life. Go outside.
So according to the Google machine, the type of climate in northern Utah is a dry, semi-arid desert climate. It is one of the driest states in the country with one of the lowest relative humidity percentages. In December, the average relative humidity is 74%, and July is 35%.
I think that sums it all up. Mark, you're safe. This might be a problem in many parts of the country, but I'm guessing it's not an issue where you are. It might actually be keeping your, floor from opening up too much in the dry part of the year.
Do you know what he meant by the rubble foundation with 12-inch thick multi-width brick?
So I think the foundation is rubble, and then there are brick masonry walls on top of that.
Got it.
And the clue there, I think, is the multi-Y masonry,
Right.
I was going to recommend we build a 6-inch tall spray foam robot, but we'll save that. We'll save that for some other time.
Don't give away our $1 million ideas, man. That's a good one. I was thinking of training toddlers to do spray foaming and air sealing work, right? Are there rules against that? This comes from Anu. Forgive me, Anu, if I'm saying your name incorrectly. Hello, FHB team. I'm building a wall assembly in Oakland, California with continuous exterior foam, and I'm worried about termites. Exterior insulation is still not common in this mild area as far as I can tell, so I haven't been able to get answers from local lumber yards. And when I think about it, there might be too much intersection between the areas cold enough for exterior insulation but warm enough for termites. Oh, I'm sorry. And there might not be too much intersection between areas cold enough for exterior insulation but warm enough for termites. I'm planning 1-inch polyiso or EPS insulation over zip sheathing. See the attached detail. I'm worried that termites, which are very active in this area, will climb up the stem wall, burrow into the foam, and find the OSB zip sheathing. Tell me, of course, if this is a legitimate concern, but also if you know of any products or methods to deal with this issue, and if you know of any incidental termite protection tips for the rest of the build, please throw them in. I hope I'm not taking you too far out of your New England comfort zone. Thank you so much for helping me on this one. Well, I think you're definitely taking us out of our too tight crawl space zone for today's show. But I think this is fine fodder for a podcast question, right?
I think it's also a great idea for a feature in Fine Homebuilding.
Protecting exterior foam from termites?
Yeah, and, termite conscious wall assemblies in particular.
I think that's a great idea too.
Yeah.
Anyone out there?
So if you want to write the story,
yeah,
reach out. I did a little bit of research. I haven't had to think about this at all being in Minnesota, and it seems like there are a few common themes among the research I've done because it's everything from don't worry about it to,
don't ever do this. Right?
Don't build a house in this in this state.
And don't build a wood house in this state.
But a few things, having space between grade and where your wall assembly starts is important. Having some sort of physical barrier between the ground and your wall assembly. So a lot of the pictures I saw had sort of a metal flashing detail.
I think it's called a termite shield.
Termite shield under your mud sill. And then, there are also some insect bug screen products to put under your foam too. So, and then the other thing they said is you may have to sacrifice some airtightness in order to have inspection windows in areas where you can keep an eye on it. And so that was the other part of it is you build for resilience and then make sure you can check on it on a regular basis and do that maintenance.
You really did your homework on this, man. Thank you.
It's been an idea, we have very little on this in Fine Homebuilding, so I had to go to other places. Then I was like, well, I need to know enough about this to figure out if we should do a story about it, and we totally should. Yeah,
we totally should. So I've heard is that you just don't do this in areas with heavy termite concentrations, and it depends on what kind of termites, how big the risk is. Places with Formosan termites have the greatest problems because they are, by some accounts,
scary.
Unstoppable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. People claim they eat concrete. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that if you keep the foam dry, you greatly reduce the risk for bugs. But I've also heard folks who say they have problems regardless. So it's hard to know.
Would a different exterior insulation material be a solution?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Andrew, because one of the postscripts on Anu's email was, I'm aware of borite-treated EPS. Most resources say this hasn't been tested long enough to know if it's effective. I called Insulfoam and asked them if it was enough protection from termites, and they told me, it's up to you. I would think that would be a great start, right? Because these salt chemicals, borates, are toxic to termites. So, in fact, I think some of the modern termiticides are borate based.
I was also thinking, is mineral wool an option?
Yeah, I looked it up on Rockwool's website, and it claims that their product is resistant to termites. But I would think you would still have to be concerned about termites getting in between panels, behind panels, maybe not burrowing into them the way that they would with EPS. But I think it would still be a concern. Do we wonder at all why you're putting exterior insulation on a house in Oakland, California?
I didn't even want to bring that up, but it's revealing that attached foam is not common in this area, right? You know, the climate's really mild. It's really mild. Instead, people have like 5 and 6 panel, patio doors that connect inside and outside, that you can see daylight around. If you have those kind of doors and windows, like your exterior insulation is probably not going to be that big a deal, right? It's not going to help very much. But
that said, there's other areas in the country where you would have the termite problem and want to put insulation on, so it's still a valid research topic. Just not sure if I'd like to know the thought process behind doing that in Oakland, California.
My guess is they want to do the right thing, and I think they should. People who have to push the envelope with regard to improving our housing, and someone's got to do it.
Yeah, there's energy savings and resiliency. I especially in California, for whatever reason, it feels like their weather is changing so significantly. That if you want to have a house that lasts a long time, it does get complicated quickly.
The other thing is, California has recently had long power interruptions, right? You can imagine your well-insulated, airtight house is going to stay way more comfortable than your leaky, poorly insulated home.
That's a good point. And I don't know if they're in the city of Oakland or if they're around it, but even with fires, the Rockwool board would be a better product than a highly flammable foam board material.
I think it needs to be said that places with a lot of termites, it's just accepted that you have pest control on a regular basis. And, these folks know what to look for. Unfortunately, they have to spray a bunch of chemicals around your house all the time. But, it's just a complication of living in paradise, right?
Andrew, in any of your research, did you come across landscaping things that you should do, like not having mulch up against the house and having areas of stone?
Yeah, it was basically you want to have the best drainage possible and have no captive water near anything, because soggy materials are sort of like the real draw for termites. So keeping that landscaping away from the house, not using any sort of wood or mulch there for sure.
Not that they're the same thing, but we had carpenter ants in a house that we lived in New York, and they were bad enough that you'd see them, by the dozens inside the house. And we did a lot of landscape things around to try and mitigate it and mitigate where they were coming in. And then finally I found the giant nest in a dead tree that was like maybe 10 yards from the house. And that finally took care of it when I found the nest.
I've heard smart people who study termites say that there's not enough wood in a house to really support a termite colony. They are living somewhere else and using your house for foraging. I'm sure there are exceptions, like for some types of wood construction, but like a normal light wood frame house just is
not enough there for
is not enough there for them to eat.
Yeah, that was similar to what I found trying to figure out our carpenter ant problem. I know they're different insects, but it was the same thought process, which is what got me looking around outside for the nest.
There's actually a post on Reddit yesterday that somebody had posted in like the oddly terrifying subreddit, and they were like, I went on vacation and got back. There was a precisely drilled hole in my front door, and this person was like freaked out, and they're like, "What's going on? Is somebody trying to break in?" And then it was the telltale pile of like, I can't remember what they call the wood that.
Frass, right? Isn't it?
Frass. That's yeah. There's just like the little pile of that, and everyone's like, "Oh no, it's just a bug." But it's probably scarier than
It's a carpenter bee specifically, right?
Yeah.
It's like a 3/8 inch diameter hole that's perfectly round.
But it looks man-made,
Because of the precision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, there's a good reason they're called carpenter bees.
They're good at what they do.
I have a pair that live in the rafter tails of my lean-to, which I can see from my desk here. And they delight me. They are so hardworking. If I have to reframe the roof, I don't care because I just like watching them. You see little sawdust sifting down occasionally, and then I think it's the male that just flies back and forth protecting the nest or the missus who's drilling a hole. As is typical, the female is the one doing all the work, and the male is just watching.
So is the hole for a nest specifically?
I think they put an egg in there.
Oh.
Yeah, I think they put an egg or maybe more than one in there. And I think they do all this work, and I think then they think they die. It's kind of, interesting. It's like when you raise your kids, then you're just worn out. I wanted to bring up something with regard to termites. Terma Mesh, which is like this super fine stainless steel product. It's screen, and it goes around the penetrations through your slab, and it prevents the termites because, you hear about termites eating concrete, but that's really not what they do. But they do come in the holes between the concrete and your pipes or your electrical conduit or whatever. And before your concrete slab is poured, the Terma Mesh dealer, and I think it is a specialty, comes out and installs these little, they look like flashing boots around your pipe risers. And allegedly it's very effective without the toxicity of, other ways to deal with termites in places that have them bad.
Yeah, I think there's an assumption that when you pour concrete, it's this tight slab of concrete that nothing can get through. But you forget that the concrete, depending on how it's placed, can have little gaps and grooves wherever it butts up against things like your pipes that come through the floor.
And just the act of curing and, the evaporation of bleed water makes it shrink, right? So, it's going to get smaller around anything that's going through it or open up around anything that's going through it.
But it's a specialty contractor that comes and installs that product?
As I understand it, Ian, there might be knockoff, like mesh products for termite control, but I'm pretty sure the Terma Mesh thing is, a special pest control dealer, if you will. Those of you out there with termite problems, I'd love to hear more about it because we learned so much from folks, outside of where we are, and it's super helpful.
Yeah, John Carroll in Durham, North Carolina would probably be a good one to talk to us about termites. I know when I interviewed him for the anniversary podcast thing last year, he was talking about the masonry construction down there and the reason for it being the termites. And I don't know if it's the aggressive one that you mentioned before, but it seems to be a standard practice to termite proof and build with brick claddings and things like that in North Carolina.
Florida, you see very little wood frame construction for that reason. Most stuff is concrete block because of their bug problems. It's a very interesting thing because termites are moving north with climate change. It's been researched and determined, so it's something that more of us are likely to be dealing with. So Kylie asked me to mention that the Passivhaus Network announced their programming for their annual conference titled Passivhaus for All. The event takes place June 10th online and June 17th in person and in Boston. In person in Boston and online on the 17th. The 10th, June 10th is only online. It'll take on the full range of specialized technical, process, and policy aspects of Passivhaus and drives climate action. But it will also challenge industry and stakeholders to think more holistically, looking at the intersections of efficiency, electrification, embodied carbon, and social equity. And I'll put a link on the podcast page for folks who want to learn more about that. We should probably go to that, right, Andrew?
I think absolutely we should go to that, and
Kylie should. Yeah.
One of the things that has been really great coming out of the pandemic is there's like usually a virtual option, and that I'll be tuning in for sure.
Oh, cool. I also wanted to ask folks for help with something. I had this idea owing to a YouTube collection I started watching called it's called Just Rolled In, and it's auto technicians showing the wacky broken cars that they see, and they just take a short video and show like someone's aluminum rim that's split completely in half, or the rust that's bad enough that the like control arms are no longer attached to the frame of the car. Like just crazy things that you think people couldn't possibly be driving around with. But I think it would be fun to have something similar for home building. So if you guys find wacky stuff in the houses you're working on, please send them along, because I think that would be super entertaining for all of us. And not to make fun of people, but just like, I'm sure you see weird things, bad repairs,
I can't believe people live here.
Would you want to title it "Someone Lives Here" as opposed to this? Just
I have an idea in mind, but I don't want to give it away because someone will secure the domain name before I can. So, if you're curious about Just Rolled In, I highly recommend it. It's just fun.
It really is fun, Patrick. It's. I wouldn't call myself a car person or a car guy by any means, but yeah, it's fascinating that like people are just driving around in these things, and living their lives.
Disgusting cars too, like people with like rotting food or cockroaches living in their house. There was this like one car that had like moss or algae growing over every surface. It was just like so impossibly disgusting. I couldn't believe it. So I think we could do something similar, and it would be super fun. Do you guys have any announcements or anything you want to talk about before we go?
No, I'm looking forward to outing my blower door test when I'm with you next.
And I'm planning to do one here coming up toward the end of May myself. So
who's doing yours, Andrew?
I'm not entirely sure yet.
Okay.
I reached out to the Minnesota Center for Energy. That offers the $100 one, and I kind of want something a little bit more in depth, but I'm not sure that I want to know that much. So
you're obviously scared to have Randy Williams comes out because he'll know more than you want to know.
But I think that would also be super fun. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. I want to make one more announcement. So. Those of you who listen to Mason Lord on the Pro Talk podcast I did with him, he had a concept to try and introduce young people to trade work. And we're working on what is at least tentatively being called Touch a Trade, in the model of the Touch a Truck, which those of you who have little kids know that, first responders and equipment operators and stuff bring their equipment and to show little kids. And so the idea is that we get together as tradespeople and show folks our gear, let them ask questions, because we maintain you never know if you like something if you've never been exposed to it. So the hope is that, we'll stir some interest in the cool things that tradespeople do. And the plan is to have that October 22nd at the CAMA museum, the Connecticut Antique Machinery Association Museum, which is a beautiful facility in Kent, Connecticut. And it adjoins the Sloan Museum, which is a state museum, a historic museum. And we're going to hopefully have tradespeople demonstrating their stuff and talking to young people about trade work and anyone else who might be interested, because we're learning that second career folks also are being attracted to trade work for the satisfaction of it. So if you're willing, we would love to have you there to demonstrate and talk to folks. So I'm putting out the call early for the folks who listen to the show. If you are in the area or willing to travel, we would love to have you, love to meet you, and love to talk to you. So I think that would be super fun, and I hope you'll consider it. Sound good? What do you guys think?
I think it's a great idea.
I'm already there. I'm excited.
Yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
It sounds very cool.
Yeah. So my hope is to have all kinds of cool stuff to look at, and I hope you all will help me. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have today. Thanks to Andrew, Ian, and Jeff for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive. Happy building. Don't build 6 inches to the ground, please.